Now, I know what you're going to say. Isn't the idea of owning a greenhouse so you spend less money in the garden centre? Well, yeah, about that, I have got absolutely loads to get done today. I will be planting up the tomatoes and creating kind of a thing, supporting kind of thing to hold the tomatoes up, which isn't going to involve canes. The canes are for something else. I am going to explain the difference between perlite and vermiculite. And I know this is a ridiculously expensive way of going about it, but it needs must. I've got my trays for the shelves, finally. So I can stop using propagators as trays. I've got all sorts of like feeds, and this is for like the azaleas and rhododendrons to try and acidify the soil a bit. Liquid seaweed, which someone suggested. Thank you for your amazing suggestions, as per usual. Please keep them coming, because I have no clue what I'm doing, but things are like accelerating at a rapid rate of knots, and I'm kind of struggling to keep up a little bit. Ericaceous compost, and I've stocked up on normal compost as well for the tomatoes and everything else. The one carrot that germinated is in my curly kale. Brilliant. Get out. So first things first, I need to work out what tomato plants I've actually got. So I'm going to kind of put them all together in groups. So this is Ace 55. Actually, watching me moving tomato plants around is going to get a little bit boring, so I'll come back to you once I've done that. So it's quite interesting this to see which tomatoes have worked kind of the best so far. So we've got 3 cherry reds, only one of which is a reasonable enough size to kind of plant out. They're indeterminate, which means that they are going to need support. They grow upwards and keep growing to an indeterminate height. We've got 4 Moneymaker, 2 of which are really good size. The other 2 are a little bit smaller, but they're still pretty decent. Again, those are indeterminate. We've got 5 San Marzanos. They're all a decent size and by far the biggest of all the ones that I've grown. Pizza lovers, these are your tomatoes for pizza sauce, so great big kind of plum tomatoes if you like. Again, indeterminate. And then we've got 6 lots of Ace 55, 4 of which are doing really well, 2 of which are a little bit smaller, but they're still okay. These are determinate tomatoes. That means they grow to a determined height. So they're kind of bush tomatoes, if you like. They still grow quite high, I think, this variety. So they might need some support, but they don't need the same level of support as all of the indeterminate tomatoes, which will just keep going kind of up and up. So the plan is to grow a couple of these in pots. So obviously I'm growing all of these in the tomato bed over here, and by the way, I have no clue, I've never done this in my life. It's my first ever attempt at growing tomatoes, so I'm kind of hoping for the best. But I need to work out the spacing. I think if we go for about 45 centimetres between plants, we should be pretty good. So if we go for one kind of there, what I could do actually is probably set it back and go on maybe diagonals to get a few more plants in, so I could do like this kind of thing. I don't want to come too far out because it'll be a pain in the neck if I'm having to kind of navigate past them, but I think something like this should work pretty well. I think that'll be alright, so that's enough room for 8 tomato plants. So then I've just got a fishing weight on some string, And I need to work out where my supports are going to go. So just with a plumb weight, I know that if I've got a support there, so I'm just putting a little mark with a Sharpie, and then I'm going to need 2 rows of supports for this. I don't need to be that fussy, but around there should be spot on. And then I'm just going to transfer those marks over onto the other side quickly. Actually, I'll need this string to go all the way to this end, so 36. I'm trying not to disturb the spider webs in the corners because the spiders do a wonderful job of catching the mosquitoes, which is sometimes a little bit problematic. Sorry spiders, there you go, get back to work. And then I'm just going to fit 4 of these little loop things with the cropped bolts on them. $10mm spanner, in case you're wondering. Then I've just temporarily added some string because I'm going to add some extra centre supports. They're going to go kind of there and like there. This is going to be a fairly permanent feature in the greenhouse, so I want to get this right. I'm only going to do this once. Then I've just used wire for the main support for no particular reason. It's just because I've got loads of spare wire, and as I say, because it's going to be fairly permanent, I figured something nice and strong and easy to attach to would be good. Where's my spider gone? He was there just a second ago. And then it's just time for the string. I'm just using this stuff. I'm going to double it up and it just gives a little bit more support for the plant. So I've got 8 lots of that to put in. No fancy knots here, by the way. I'm just knotting the end, and then at the other end I'm making a loop. Hopefully you can see literally the hardest thing in the world to film. I'll just repeat that a bunch of times. Man, the weather this week has just been incredible. Unfortunately, I don't think it's forecast to stay like that, but it's a cool 28.3 degrees in the greenhouse at the moment. And that's with the vents fully open. But anyway, folks, we are on to the exciting bit. And all I've done here is selected the biggest plants. We've got 2 of the cherry tomato, and then I'm going to do 3 of the San Marzano, and then 3 of the Moneymaker, and as I say, we'll do the Ace 55 determinate tomatoes in a pot. So you can see I've kind of worked out which plant is going where, but before planting anything, what we need to do is add some compost to this soil. Hiya, Nugget. Where have you been? And we also need to give this a really thorough watering, because this bed has been sitting, festering away, absolutely bone dry for several months now. So it needs a good bit of water and a good bit of compost. I'm just going to temporarily shove these up a height so that they don't get wet, because I don't want them going all kind of mouldy. I'm going to give this existing compost just a little bit kind of work into the ground, just to loosen it up a little bit. As I say, just because it's been sitting there untouched for several months, so it will have kind of settled down quite a lot. And then I'm going to add a good, probably bag and a half, I think, at least a bag of extra fresh compost. This is just a little bit finer than the compost that I originally put in. I think a bag's probably enough. I'm wearing gloves because I'm operating the camera, and otherwise I have to kind of wash my hands every time I want to press stop. Any big clay-like lumps like that I'm just getting rid of. Then, finally, time to plant everything up. This is very exciting. I'm just going to pop the string in the bottom of the hole along with a little bit of compost and secret sauce. Where's it gone? Just some chicken manure pellets in the bottom. And then before I put the plant in, I'm going to give the hole a good water. And then I'm just going to repeat that another 7 times. I'm not going to water this in because there's plenty of water down at the bottom of the hole. I'm going to follow Hugh Richards' tips of encouraging the roots to go downwards rather than giving it too much water near the surface. So I'm going to leave it like that, and yeah, as I say, repeat 7 times. And by the way, the reason I'm putting this slightly smaller plant at the front, this is a red cherry, it's because it'll probably get a little bit more sunshine at this front position, so hopefully that'll help it catch up with his big brother at the back there. And ladies and gents, that is it. Now we wait. It's amazing to think that, what, 2 months ago, these were literally just seeds. So now, fingers crossed that they actually grow into tomatoes, but this is unbelievably exciting. Oh, and by the way, because obviously the determinate tomato that I've got potted up is in a pot, I can move it into the sun when it's sunny, and I can move it back into here at night time. At the minute it's happily sitting outside there in the sun. I do still have a couple more to pot up there, but story of my life, I have run out of pots again. Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you, the big canes are for the sunflowers, which are going to need potted out in the garden very, very soon. So I'm all ready kind of to do that. Hit subscribe if you want to see what happens with the red sunflowers. Again, never planted them in my life. And the difference between vermiculite and perlite. Perlite is made of pearls, vermiculite is made of worms. That was a joke, obviously, but the way that I remember which is which, vermiculite. The way to remember, imagine they're little worms that have shrunk because they've become dehydrated, and then once they get rehydrated with water, they soak up that water and they hold the moisture really well. So if you want to add something to your potting mix that holds moisture in, vermiculite is really good for that. And then perlite, by my understanding, is like a volcanic kind of expanded, aerated, very, very lightweight. I mean, both of them are lightweight, but as I say, this holds the moisture. The vermiculite, think of worms that have been turned into little like accordions and they suck up the moisture. Perlite doesn't really do that. It just helps to add drainage and a nice kind of lightness to the potting mix. So that's how I remember the difference. If you want good drainage, perlite. If you want something that's going to hold the moisture, vermiculite. At least that's my understanding. So folks, we'll leave it there for today. As I say, do hit subscribe if you want to find out what happens to our tomatoes. I think going down the line a little bit, if they actually grow and we produce some tomatoes, we'll do a bit of a taste test to compare the difference between the red cherry, the San Marzano, the Moneymaker and the Ace 55, and we'll compare all of them with supermarket bought tomatoes just for a bit of a comparison. So if you want to see all that, tune into a future video. For now folks, as per usual, look after one another, be nice to each other. We shall see you next time. Tatty bye.